Welcome to today's webinar on business extranets that are cost-effective and highly secure. We're very excited to have you join us today. Our company's Premier Point Solutions, and I'm Jeff Cate, the founder and president. This is our 20th year in business, and we've been working in the SharePoint world since 2003. Joining me is Jonathan Horton, and he's one of our expert support engineers for our Extranet Collaboration Manager software, which we'll be talking some about later in the presentation. Hello, Jonathan. Glad to have you with me today.
All right, thanks.
We're going to start today by presenting our thoughts on how an on-premises business extranet can be designed to be highly secure. In fact, really, it can be much more secure than many cloud services. Then we're going to talk about strategies for minimizing the costs of your extranet. After that, Jonathan will jump in and give you a demo of the features that Extranet Collaboration Manager for SharePoint brings to the table to allow you to better take advantage of the security and cost aspects we will have discussed. We'll also make sure to save time at the end of the demonstration for questions and answers. Feel free at any time to type in any questions you have in your GoToMeeting panel, and we'll make sure to answer all of them at the end of the demonstration. So let's start with security first and talk about some of the key security features and aspects that a SharePoint-based on-premises extranet has to offer. We're not planning to have a deep technical discussion in this webinar, but one of the first things that even non-technical people will ask is, how do we protect our extranet from the bad guys that are out there on the internet? There's actually many steps you can take to safely and securely offer extranet collaboration capabilities between your employees and your external business partners, and we'll discuss more of those as we proceed. But a good place to start is with the topology or design of the way your SharePoint servers are connected to the internet. We've been involved in hundreds of business extranet deployments over the past 10 years, and the vast majority of them find that a topology like the one shown here provides for a very secure extranet environment. The basic idea is that your external business partners, who are non-employees, will use their browser to access the public URL for your extranet. That public URL will resolve to your firewall. Then its reverse proxy feature kicks in, which will cause the rest of the communication that occurs to be between the firewall and your SharePoint web front-end server, making the overall process very secure. Several years ago, Microsoft sold a firewall and reverse proxy server product named Threat Management Gateway, and it had an excellent reputation for securely publishing a SharePoint extranet web application to the internet. Unfortunately, that product was discontinued, but many customers have replaced it with a very similar product, which is made by Sophos. It's called the Sophos Unified Threat Management Gateway, Sophos UTM. That's what we use today at Premier Point Solutions as the firewall and reverse proxy to publish our extranet. If you have a need for this type of solution, we think it's a good one. However, there are many other products on the market that provide similar functionality. The main point is that you need a good firewall and reverse proxy sitting in front of your SharePoint server. Normally, your internal users are already behind your firewall and can access the SharePoint servers directly. In this way, your internal users can securely collaborate with your external business partners. All the collaboration content lives in the SharePoint databases that are securely maintained on your premises. Finally, of course, SSL, which stands for Secure Sockets Layer, is configured so that all the communication that goes over the internet to your external users is encrypted And before any content is available for the external user, they must authenticate using a sign-in form. Going a level deeper, SharePoint supports having multiple web applications on your server. Normally, it's a best practice to create a new web application that is dedicated to your extranet so that your extranet content and intranet content is kept completely separate. That's what's shown in this screenshot. It's also important to note that each web application has its own database. So using this approach, you can be assured that your intranet data and extranet data are kept completely separate. Within a web application, there can be individual site collections, and each site collection provides a natural security boundary between it and the other site collections. In many extranet scenarios, such as a customer extranet, this feature can really enhance the overall security scheme. If you separate site collections for customer A and customer B, then you significantly reduce the chance of customer A ever being able to access customer B's content and vice versa. Now, SharePoint supports up to 250,000 separate site collections per web application. We're not suggesting that you should have that many site collections, but rather we're making the point that SharePoint is designed to be able to work well at very high scales, which can come in handy in some business extranet scenarios. With an on-premises SharePoint extranet, you're able to manage the accounts of all your external users, as you see in this screenshot. These accounts can be kept in a separate directory that is most frequently what's known as an ASP.NET membership provider database that SharePoint understands how to use for authenticating your external users. This approach keeps the accounts for all your external users separate from your internal users, which of course are stored in Active Directory. Later in this webinar, Jonathan's going to show you how the provisioning and management of external user accounts can be automated to a high degree. You're going to want to do that because you don't want to add user account management responsibilities to your already busy SharePoint farm administrators. So some mechanism for automating that is important. Another important point about this is that by having an on-premises extranet, you have a lot more control over access than you do with most cloud services, such as Office 365, since you own the external user accounts and can choose to disable or delete an account at any time. That's not the case with cloud services. Typically, the cloud service owns the user identities, the accounts. You have to be responsible for sharing or unsharing content with users. Well, on premises, you can just delete or disable an external user, and all of a sudden that user has no access to anything on your extranet. Makes security maintenance much simpler. Here's a quick look at a typical sign-in page for a SharePoint-based extranet. However, for this sign-in page, multi-factor authentication has been enabled. So in addition to a valid username and password combination, a second type of authentication must be provided. In this example, the user has chosen to be sent a text message with a code that can be entered on a sign-in page along with the password. Multi-factor authentication is an industrial strength way to increase the security of your extranet. Finally, it is possible to pre-establish extranet security policies when you supplement SharePoint with an extranet add-on like Extranet Collaboration Manager. By establishing security policies for your extranet, you can eliminate all need to manually set permissions on extranet sites. Instead, as external users register and sign in, they are automatically added to the correct security group that is defined in your extranet security policy. Now let's switch gears and talk about how cost-effective a SharePoint extranet can be. First, it's important to note that starting with SharePoint 2013, Microsoft removed all licensing requirements for external users, as can be seen in this page from the Microsoft SharePoint 2013 licensing brief. In essence, in the extranet scenario described here, you can allow unlimited use of your extranet web application by external users who are defined as non-employees. They could be customers, vendors, contractors, or any other type of business partner that is not an employee. No additional licensing is required for them. Of course, your internal employees require licenses to use SharePoint, but in most cases, those licenses have already been purchased because you're using SharePoint as your intranet solution. In this case, you already have all the licenses you need to start using your existing SharePoint farm for also hosting your extranet. There's no additional money to pay to Microsoft. You just create a new web application for your extranet. Finally, if you don't currently have SharePoint running at all in your company, it's important to note that the free version of SharePoint Foundation, makes an outstanding extranet platform. The primary features that are needed in most extranet collaboration scenarios are things like document libraries and versioning and task lists and calendars and email alerts. All of these features and more come with SharePoint Foundation, which is free for both internal and external users to use. Okay, so that's it for the intro. I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan and let him give you a demo of a SharePoint extranet. Jonathan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank all of you for attending today. Before we get started with the demo, I will need to introduce you to a few people and companies to kind of make the demo a little more clear. For the demo, we're going to be looking at a scenario where All Bikes and Associates is going to be adding a new client, and they're going to be provisioning a new site to securely collaborate with that client. The first employee will be Brenda. She's a paralegal with All Bikes and Associates. And then making a brief appearance is going to be Alan, who's also an attorney for All Bikes and Associates. Next, we'll have Jim, who's going to be a representative with the client Wyatt in this scenario. And last but not least, we need to introduce you to the SharePoint admin for All Bikes and Associates. And while he may be wearing a cape in this picture, he is not really the hero of our story. That's just what our SharePoint admin wears to work on picture day. Now that we've introduced you to the cast, we're also going to kind of walk you through, there's going to be 3 stages of our software demo. First stage, we'll walk you through the process that Brenda will use to request a new site collection for the client Wyatt. Next, we'll jump behind the scenes, kind of show you some of the admin, what the admin sees, and some of the ways of configuring the product. We'll also take a look at the user experience for Jim. Then, during the last stage of the software demo, we'll jump back in as an admin and then take a look at the extranet management section of the software and just how you can quickly and easily make automation changes that will simplify user management. All right, well, having said that, let's just jump into our demo. So on the screen, this is going to be, we're going to be logged into this computer as Brenda, so anytime you see the yellow background, this is Brenda being logged in. She's been working with Jim, and now it's time for her to create a site and start submitting documents for mutual collaboration. Brenda knows that to do so, she'll need to click on her extranet link up here. And one thing that this demo will not show you is that Wyatt has already been entered into All Bikes CRM software prior to this stage of onboarding a new client. If we go and click on the extranet, what you'll see here is this is the default extranet sign-in page. Typically, as an internal user, this page would be bypassed, but it wouldn't make for a good demo if we didn't show you all the fun features. So throughout the demo, what we hope to show you is just how customizable this product is. If you want to add your branding, change wording, add logos, our product allows you to do that. A few of the features that you see on this login page are the multi-factor authentication, which Jeff alluded to or talked about earlier. This is just so you can send an email or text to verify the code that your user has to add that to this page before they can request a login. Also, you can see that there's a forgot password option. So if the external user forgets their password, they're not calling your IT department or trying to contact your company in any way, but rather our product gives them the ability to reset their password by answering a password question. For now, we're just going to use the link at the bottom to log in as Brenda. This is to sign in using Windows Authentication. And then we'll just log in as Brenda, if I can remember her password. All right. You can tell that we're logged in as Brenda. If I scroll over to the right here, you can see Brenda Mason's logged in. If I scroll back over here, this is her actual extranet site. So once she logs out here, there's a extranet web app here that we can go down, and I can see what list of sites Brenda has access to. She can quickly see, Wyeth is not one of our clients that we have, so she knows that she's going to need to click on the site request link. So she clicks on the site request, and she's presented with some request links here. Reading on the left, she knows that she needs to create a new client in Matter or a site and subsite. So she clicks the link, new client Matter, clicks the link here, and she's presented with a form. Now, Brenda's been employed by many different organizations before, and every time she's had to fill out some form in order to request a new site collection to get created. Maybe in your organization you have something similar where your end users fill out a form or send an email to your SP admin. The admin then goes and builds out the site and checks back with the users for inspection, and perhaps a few more emails exchanged to set up just exactly how it's needed. So for Brenda, there's nothing really new here. She's just simply going to fill out this form. So site title, it's going to be Wyeth. Site description, there's not a red asterisk here, so it's not really a necessary field for her or required field for her, so she's just going to bypass that. And then for client, so part of this EXM professional package that we have here, there's a tool that we have, it's called TermSync, that will synchronize your terms with a database that's outside SharePoint. So if you have a CRM database, those terms would automatically be synchronized with your metadata, so you can pull information from your CRM and use it in these forms. As Brenda starts typing, she sees that the client is pre-populated. Wyeth is the client, so she goes ahead and clicks on the link here, and then she gives it a matter number. And then we'll scroll down to the site members. So this is where Alan gets to make his cameo in our demo. Brenda knows that any time that she creates a new site, she needs to add Alan as a member. So she adds Alan right here. She does not need to add a visitor at this time, so she's simply going to click on the button for Finish. And now if I check my email, thought I had that open. If I check the email, I see that Brenda has received an email letting her know that her request for a new client matter has been received. And we can open that up and take a look at that. But this is the conclusion of the first stage of our demo. So you saw that Brenda received a client. She went out to her Extranet site. She saw that there wasn't a site already created, and so she filled out a form. So what happens when that form gets filled out? So in order to take a look at that, let's jump over to a different slide here. And now we're logged in as administrator. As you can see up in the top right corner, this is the administrator. The administrator has browsed out to this Extranet site, and you can see over here on the right, this new client matter is spinning up. That means that the request that Brenda submitted has already came in, and it's already being processed. Now, what do I mean by being processed? Let's just take a look over here. If I go out and look at these execution details, there are several activities that are being ran as we're talking. So right now, it looks like the web application was open, site was created, and currently it's applying a site template. All of these activities are being done in the background without your admin having to do them. So let's let that percolate for a little bit longer, and we'll go back out, and we'll just take a look at this new client matter. So at this section here, if I click on this Make Request link, you'll notice this is the exact same form that Brenda just filled out. So whenever she clicked the link on her page, this actually brought her to this page right here, and she was able to fill out the form and submit it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the execution settings. So if I as an admin want to go through this form and maybe make some changes to it, all I have to do as the admin is click on the execution settings. And at the top here, you can see these input fields. This is actually the form that was filled out. So you can see the site title, site description, client, matter number. Those are all things that Brenda typed in. As a matter of fact, you see the site description, which we pointed out was not a required field. That was set by changing this value here from is required to false. If I wanted to add an input field to that form, I simply click on Add Field, and then I can change what field type it is, where it's placed on the form, what the name of it is, and what type of values it will have. Let's scroll down, because this is where the action happens. These are the activities. So we saw that the request that Brenda had submitted was going through and was percolating, and it was at this Apply Site template. One thing that we've done is before Brenda went out there, we actually, as an admin, you come out here, you can set up this request profile, and you can add different activities as you like. So I think there are roughly 70 activities that you can add, and adding them to a request profile is as simple as clicking on Add Activity, and then just changing your activity type, and then selecting what type you need from the form. For this one, let's just add a list item. Oh, maybe not a list item. Let's see what we have out there. Oh, just typed it wrong. Add list item. So if I do that, I select OK. Now you can see that the input forms have changed here. These are only valid to this actual activity type. So if I click on the formula button to the right, you can see that there's just some real easy graphical user interface here that I can choose from, and it will populate so that I'm not having to come up with these items. I can actually just choose a drop-down box, and it's going to only allow me to use what's necessary for this add list item. For the purpose of this demo, I'm not going to go ahead and configure all this, so we'll just go ahead and cancel out there. So you saw how the request profile is set up. And again, I know I'm running through this really fast. So if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask the questions in the Q&A box for your webinar. So we go back, we look now, we have a green checkbox next to the new client matter that Brenda set up. So what we'll do is just a second, we'll jump back over as Brenda, and I'll show you what the result was from her. One thing I did want to point out, it looks like we have one that had a red mark on here. So if you're in the middle of configuring a file, or say someone fills out a form and it does not get created, you can actually come out here, look at those execution details. And if you scroll down, you can see that it actually tells you where it errored out at. So while processing this request, it errored out at trying to request this add site sponsor. Scrolling down further, we can see that this particular error was because a group could not be found. So it's possible that there was something in a previous step that got missed. But one thing we could do is if we fix the error, we could actually go back out and just choose clear error. And then we could actually start the process again from where it cleared out. So if I just scroll down, see it's faulted, I can actually hit save and it would clear that error out right there and start over again. But now, let's see, like I said, it's, the request has already been processed, so let's jump back over and log back in as Brenda. Just one button. And here we are, log back in as Brenda. You can see the, this is back to that screen. If we scroll down and look, looks like Brenda received a new email letting her know that the request was successful and that her site has been created. So for Brenda, after she receives that email, she clicks on the link and she'll be taken to the Extranet site that was just created for her. So again, we're logged in as Brenda. Hopefully you can see that there's a new template that's been applied. You can see that the color scheme is different than the default. If you look to the left over here, there's an admin links link here. So we'll go ahead and click on that. This was actually built during the request profile. So what we do if we just click on the admin links, you can see that while the request was being built, these links were added to this site. So now Brenda, who is only in the members group, she is not an owner or a site collection admin, she can actually come out here and let's say she needs to create a new group. She can simply click the link and be taken to a new request profile that would allow her to, again, fill out a form, click on submit, and then a new group would be added. Or let's say she needs to add a user to a group. Once again, through the you configuring or your admin configuring the request profiles on the front end, you can go through there, make sure that only the options that you want to be checked are checked, and she can click on the link, fill out a form, and as simple as that, she could click on submit, and it would actually add a user to a group. One question you may be asking yourself now is, yes, but what about, well, if we don't want her to just, add anyone to a group, maybe we want to add some approval process to it. That can be built in as well. So whenever she clicks on the request of a new form or any type of request profile, you can actually add an approval process. It'll send an email to maybe a supervisor. Supervisor, just like any other workflow in SharePoint, would click on accept through the email, and then it would process after the request was approved. So just like that, Brenda has gone out to the Extranet site. She filled out a form. It created a new site collection with the template that we want to be used, with all the URLs and announcements all changed the way we want them to look. And she never had to once have any more permissions than just the members group. So as far as Brenda's concerned, we're actually done, except for the fact that now she wants to, let's say she wants to add Jim to this site. So we can actually just go back out to the root site here, or the site collection. And then, so now she knows that in order to invite Jim, all she has to do is come up here to this gear icon and click on Invite Users. And again, she's doing this from the site collection. So in order for her to add the user to the site, all she has to do is type in Jim's email, jim@wyeth.com. And again, she's not a SharePoint admin. She has no ideas about what group policies or what type of groups to add people to or anything like that. But what she does know is that she needs to, if Jim wants to be able to edit documents, to be able to, to add documents and change documents and such, she needs to check this box here. Now this will be important in just a moment, so I'll kind of point this out now. But if you'll notice here, this has the word members on the back of it. What we are doing is, by checking this box, Brenda will be able to add Jim to the members group. So then now she's going to click on Save. And that's all Brenda had to do in order to invite Jim out and give him the proper access. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and sign out as Brenda. Close that tab. Sign out again. And then let's just check our email. And you can see here that Jim has actually received an email as well. So let's go now. We've logged out as Brenda. We're going to pretend that we're Jim, and we're going to click on this invitation email. So here again, generic email that's been sent out. All the previous emails that you've seen, including this one, you can make changes to. So this is the default template, but let's say you want to add graphics, you want to put your own wording in here, you're more than welcome to do so. And we provide a great user interface in order to let you do that. One thing I do want to show you is this register link. So if I click on register, then it will be taking Jim to a registration page. But before I do that, you'll notice this is a one-time use URL. And what that means is that, if Jim were to click on this register link and then go ahead and register, that means that if someone else were to gain access to this email after Jim had used it, they would not be able to create a new account to your Extranet. Plus, once you click on the link, you'll notice that Jim's email is already pre-populated. So if let's click here, we'll notice that whatever email address that was sent the invitation, that has to be what is used to register. So right here, I have Jim's email in. I can't back that out, can't type over it. It's there. So someone else gaining access to Jim's email would not be able to use the same email in order to gain access to your Extranet. Not that that would ever happen, because all of our users always delete all their old emails, right? So let's keep going. Password, let's just give Jim a password. Let's start typing. You'll notice that the strength indicator bar down below. This too is customizable. So if your organization says you have to have 8 characters, alphanumeric, one has to be a special character, you can adjust all of that through a graphical user interface, and it'll allow you to change this. As you can see over here, currently we just have it set to 6 characters. We'll go ahead and continue registration. Another thing that we do is your password recovery question. So at the time that the end user is setting up their account, they'll go ahead and create a password recovery question. So in case they lose their password, all they have to do is answer this one password question. By default, we give you 3 that you can choose from. If you would like to change this in the future, if you want to add more to it, if you think that ours are too easy, you're more than welcome to change these out. And then they go from there. We'll just go ahead and choose one, and then we'll type in an answer and go ahead and finish filling out this registration form. So this is Jim. The company he works for is Wyatt. And top job title. Now these last 2 fields I really want to point out to you because they're important. If you're using that multi-factor authentication option that we have, then you'll need to make sure that these 2 are filled out correctly, especially if you're using the text messaging. Because whatever phone number will be entered here will be the phone number that the text message will be sent to. So we'll go ahead and fill out a number. And we'll click on Finish. And that's all it is to the end user experience. So Brenda was able to create a site, invite a user out to the site. Jim, who was the end user, was able to register for the site and now gain access to the site. And no one in your IT department has ever had to be contacted. So this is a great way to free up a lot of time for your SharePoint admins, without having to request these people, the request sites to be created. You also have the lack of having to manage the users. So that's the second stage of the demo that I wanted to show you. I kind of want to go back into the user management side of things. So we were talking about the end users and not having to manage those end users. Let's just jump back out here and we'll go out to an Extranet site. And we'll log in as admin. And as you can tell, I'm going out to the typical site settings. Previously, you saw that the invite users was in this gear charm menu. One thing we've done here at SharePoint Solutions is we've tried very hard to ensure that using our product is as easy as using SharePoint, if not easier. So what we've done is we've baked all of our commands inside of the menus for SharePoint. One thing we're going to do now is we're just going to go out to site settings and kind of show you some more examples of that. This is the site settings page. If I scroll down, you see that we've added an Extranet management section here built right into SharePoint. And I'll go through some of this Extranet management menus for you. One thing that Jeff was talking about was the registration settings and the security policies. So one thing we can do is we can go out here to Extranet settings. Let me just show you what that was about the security policies. So you saw that when Brenda was inviting a user, the one thing she did was she checked on that box for Extranet members. Well, let's say she didn't check that box and just sent the email. Well, as we all know, who's ever used SharePoint and invited a user out, if you don't add them to the visitors group at least, then they won't even be able to have access to the site. So one of the things that we've done here at Rearpoint Solutions and with our product DXCM is we've built in these security policies so that you can kind of prevent user error from like that from happening. So this site collection security policy says that any person who's invited out to the site collection will automatically go into the visitors group. And we can change that as well. So let's say we go out here, and this is the screen I believe that was in Jeff's earlier slide. And here we can add security definition based on a number of different things. For example, let's say we know that anyone from Wyeth needs to go into our special security group that we've created just for Wyeth. Well, we can click on domain name, and then we can just type in what expression we want it to match, so at wyeth.com. And then whatever security group we added here, we could, whenever someone registers with @wyeth.com, then it would go through and add that user to that security group. I don't have a special security group set up for Wyeth, so I can't really show you, but if I did, let's just say add them to the owners group, which I do not recommend, so anybody watching at home, please don't follow my example. We're going to click on Save. And now you can see that this new security policy has been created at wyeth.com, so anyone registering with the domain name of @wyeth.com will automatically go into the owners group. Again, just for demonstration purposes only. Do not repeat. All right, let's go back out to site settings. Let's kind of show you some of the things about Extranet users, maybe some of the reports and reporting that you can see. If I click on the Extranet users, I can see what users are out there, when they last logged in, when they last logged out, what's their current status. You know, as of right now, Jim's the only approved user. So let's say that you know, I need Sally to be able to access it again. I just simply come out here and I can approve the user and go that route. But now, if I'm doing that as an admin, that might, you know, kind of defeat the purpose of having all these other automation features. So, you know, what can we do to unlock accounts without having our, you know, farm admins and SharePoint admins coming out here and having to do that? Well, we actually have a feature for that as well. We go back out to site settings, and we take a look at site sponsors. What we can do is let's go ahead and make Jim a site sponsor. So a site sponsor is basically just an elevated user that we're allowing to make changes and manage users. So, for example, let's just call it Jim, Jim, and we'll do a search. And you'll notice that even though Jim is an external user, People Picker is able to find him just by typing his name and clicking on the people search. The social security definition, what this is, it says that any person that Jim invites will automatically be added to whatever security definition we type in here. So let's say we didn't have that visitors policy, security policy set up. One thing we could do is we type in visitors. I can type. Oops. Still can't type. And then any person that Jim invited would automatically be associated with the visitors group. And the optional social security definition. So whenever Brenda was sending out a text message, or sorry, sending out the invitation to Jim, she had the option of checking the box and adding that user to this security group. The way that was accomplished was by typing in the members group here. So whenever we click on, yeah, love my typing. Whenever we type in the members group, now whenever Jim goes to send out an invitation, just like Brenda did, he'll have a checkbox and it'll say the members group here. So Jim could, you know, have the option of adding people to the members group. But now let's say that, you know, someone gets locked out, or as you saw on the previous screen, Sally needed to be approved. whichever security groups we type in this box, Jim will have the authority to go in and be able to manage those users. So let's say he needs visitors and members. Hey, no typing errors, yay. So now any group that's typed into this box, the administrator, this Jim will be able to administer to. So current things like resetting passwords, telephone numbers, maybe someone needs to change their location, Jim can actually log in and be able to do that. If we don't want Jim to have that much authority, we can actually come out here and remove some authority. So yes, we want Jim to be able to grant access to the site, but we really don't want him to be able to remove access. We just uncheck it. We want him to be able to send out invitations, but we really don't want him to be able to edit accounts. Uncheck that. Once all that's done, you just click on Save. And now whenever Jim logs in, he can actually go out there, he can invite users out himself. So this is great for, like, if you didn't want to manage the users over at Wyeth, then you would be able to create Jim as a site sponsor. Then Jim would be able to manage his own users, again, without having to get your IT department involved. Let's go ahead and go back. And we can go through some of these other pages here. Roles, think of roles like security groups that you can use for external users. So if you need different users to have access to multiple different sites, instead of adding them to an AD group, of course you just create an extranet role, and that would be used as like your AD group. Invitations and registrations. So this is kind of some of your auditing capabilities here. If I want to see what all invitations have been sent out, you can see that to this particular site collection, Tim was sent out an invitation. The administrator sent the invitation, what date was it sent out on, and oh, by the way, invitations do have an expiration date, so and you can configure this. This one was sent on 1/11 by 1/14, and it had expired 3 days until the invitation was no good anymore. Also, another way to secure your extranet. So if Tim hadn't received the email, hadn't clicked on it, someone were to capture his email and click on it, if it was after the 3 days, it would have expired, and therefore no one would have been able to use it. We'll go back out to site settings. Registrations is the same way as the invitations, except for registrations will actually show you who has actually registered versus who was just sent an invitation. I showed you the site sponsors. So the extranet settings, let's go ahead and look at the registration settings. And this is where you can kind of customize what information is being collected at a site level. So for example, let's say with this one site collection with Wyeth, not only do we need the standard information, but now we need to, let's say we need to add a zip code. We simply click on Add Registration Field, and any changes that we're making here will actually only affect this site collection. So we can type in a zip code. The field names need to be together. Display name needs to look a little more pretty. We'll still pick that. Then you have different choices. You can make this a choice box. So if you make it a choice, you just type which options you want on different lines. If you wanted a radio button, maybe you just want a drop-down menu, checkboxes. You can configure all of that simply through this graphical user interface. If you want to add a block of text to the registration field, just maybe a description, you can do that. You can also add a policy so that when anyone's registering for your extranet, they have to agree to your terms and conditions. Also, there's a CAPTCHA option, so if you're allowing people just to browse out to the site and register, anonymously, you probably want to add some type of CAPTCHA field just to make sure that they're a human being and not some type of robot trying to gain access. You can also make this a required field or not. We're going to say no. Validation expression, so if you want to make it meet a certain criteria, you can type this expression in, and if it doesn't meet that criteria, then you can have an error message get displayed. For now, just going to save, and now we have zip code added to the registration form. Domain name policies. Let's say that you know that this client is Wyeth. The only people that need to be registering for this extranet site need to have a @wyeth.com domain. So this one site collection, you can add this domain name expression. So we said @wyeth and we're going to make sure that it's an inclusion. So that Wyeth, it has to include @wyeth.com in order for the registration to be accepted. And the reverse is also true. Let's say, well, maybe we don't know if it's only going to be Wyeth, or maybe it's going to be a couple other, think about a couple of different names. So what you could do is say, well, one thing we do know is it's not going to be @Yahoo. So you can say, all right, any email address that has @Yahoo.com in the email, we're going to exclude it from being able to register. You simply click Save. I scroll down, you can see this @Yahoo.com, so it has now been added as an exclusion. So again, numerous different ways of locking this down, keeping it from, you can make sure that people aren't gaining access that don't need access. You're also, these users that are being able to do this, you're not giving them owner's permission, so they're not able to delete site collections or do the things that you maybe don't want them to be able to do on these site collections. You're able to delegate responsibilities without having to give them too much power. Mail settings, this is what I was showing you about. If you want to customize the email as you can, if you want to turn off an email. So let's say you don't really want an email to go out every time registration has been accepted. You just simply come out here and click is suppressed. Want to use a custom template? Sure, we'll let you do that. Just come out here. You just have to have already created the template, added to the list, and you'll be able to choose that email from here. You want to change who the email comes from? We can do that too. And let's say you want you want it to look like it's coming from the user who sent the invitation. So in this example, if I would have had current user Windows only selected and Brenda would have sent the email, it would look like it came from Brenda instead of using your system account. Maybe you want to use something else, no reply at mycompany.com. You just simply click this, type it in. So again, lots of ways of customization, lots of ways to go through and make sure that it's extremely secure. And again, it's pretty cost effective as well. Let's go back. I think that's everything. And so if you have questions, I know I ran through that rather quickly. So there's probably a lot of questions that are going on right now. And if you have them, please go ahead and feel free to submit them, and then we can talk about them and how it anymore. So Jeff, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you now, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jonathan. That was a great demonstration. We just got a couple more slides, talk about licensing and so forth. Before I do that, just want to reinforce that now is a great time to start typing questions in. If you have some, there's a couple of questions that have already been asked that are now be a great time for me to go ahead and give answers to those. Omar asked, under an Office 365 structure, how can we create a site collection and grant access to external users? And then sort of related to this, Prasad said, would this extranet solution be more secure than using SharePoint Online external user functionality enabled? And he also said, could you shed some light on the reverse proxy architecture? So let me clarify on both of those questions that what we've shown you, all these features and functionality, is available only at this point with on-premises SharePoint. It can be SharePoint 2010, SharePoint 2013, or SharePoint 2016. It can be SharePoint Foundation or either edition of SharePoint Server, but it's only available on premises. You have to remember that SharePoint on-premises has been around a lot longer than Office 365 and SharePoint Online. It's a much more mature product, especially in the area of an extranet. The features that we showed you have been available and refined and used lots of companies worldwide since really 2007, so 9 years now. The feature set in Office 365 is not nearly as powerful and really not nearly as secure as what you're able to achieve with an on-premises extranet. So, and Microsoft really hasn't made it possible for a third-party vendor like Premier Point Solutions to add these kind of features to Office 365. So there are some basic external user sharing features in Office 365, but you're not going to find that they're anywhere close to being as rich in functionality and as secure as what you're able to get with an on-premises SharePoint extranet. So those are good questions. Prasad also asked, could I shed some light on the reverse proxy architecture? Firewalls with reverse proxies sometimes are referred to as web application firewalls. Those features have been in firewalls for many years now, 10 years or more. The best thing to do probably is just ask your network engineers or your security engineers, you know, hey, what firewall do we use? Does it have capabilities to serve as a reverse proxy or a web application firewall? Most likely, unless it's something really old, it does, and it is suitable for publishing a SharePoint web application as an extranet. So very common feature in modern firewall software. So those are both great questions, and please, those of you who have other questions, please go ahead and type those now, and we'll answer them here in just a second. We're just going to finish this up with a couple more slides. So the question of licensing always comes up, and EXCM is licensed just like SharePoint. Can be licensed as perpetual software, on-premises perpetual software, or there's also an option to license it as an annual subscription. Some organizations prefer one way and others prefer the other, so we offer both. The exact pricing will depend on the size of your SharePoint farm and whether you want the features of EXCM Standard or EXCM Professional. If you had a single server farm, which sometimes is what companies will do just for an extranet if they don't already have an existing SharePoint farm. But if you have a single server farm, a perpetual license for EXCM Standard, in other words, a one-time purchase, is about $5,800 US dollars. And annual support agreements are required for the first year, and most customers choose to renew each year because this is important business application to them. Support's around 25%, roughly $1,450 per year. So now let's see if we have some other questions, and we'll be glad to answer those. One question is, you know, we're going to share the recorded webinar. Yes, we'll make that available. You'll get an email saying that the webinar is available for you to watch or show others. Well, very good. Well, we thank you for your time. Thank you for attending the webinar, and we do have some contact information here on the last slide. Here's our phone number, and of course, you know, our website's www.premierpointsolutions.com, and you can certainly email me or Jonathan with any questions, jeff@premierpointsolutions.com. Jonathan at premierpointsolutions.com. We'll be glad to answer your questions. If you have an interest in evaluating the software, just let us know and we'll hook you up with the right people to get you some trial keys and be able to download the software and give it a spin. Thank you again for attending this webinar, and hope you have a great rest of the week.